I walked into my daughter's house, hoping for a warm welcome, but instead I was met with a cold smile from her husband. His father whispered, trembling, "You've fallen into his trap. Run away." I smiled calmly and replied, "No, he's fallen into mine." What I did next shocked everyone. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The front door opened before I finished knocking. Georgiana's face lit up with genuine surprise, the kind of joy I hadn't seen directed at me in months. "Papa, what brings you here on a Wednesday evening?" Before I could answer properly, Urban's voice cut through the warm air from the living room, sharp, dismissive. "Well, now you're officially dead weight." He didn't even look up from his tablet. My daughter's smile faltered as she led me inside, her hand briefly touching my arm in what felt like an apology. I pulled the manila envelope from my jacket pocket, the termination letter inside feeling heavier than paper should. "I wanted to tell you both personally. The plant closed today, 27 years and—" "Hold that thought." Urban raised his hand, phone pressed to his ear, though I hadn't heard it ring. "Yes, I can move the Crawford property by Friday, no problem." Georgiana disappeared into the kitchen, the clatter of cups betraying her nervousness. I stood awkwardly in the doorway, still wearing my work clothes, tie loosened after the longest day of my life. "Sorry about that." Urban finally acknowledged my presence, setting down his phone with theatrical precision. "Important client. You understand how it is with real business." The emphasis on real wasn't accidental. I folded the termination letter carefully, methodically, the way I'd fold technical drawings at the plant. The severance package is minimal. After 27 years, they're offering— "Papa, I made your favorite tea." Georgiana returned with a tray, her voice unnaturally bright. The cups clinked against each other as her hands shook slightly. Urban's phone buzzed again. He answered immediately, turning his back to us. "Hudson Properties. Yes, we specialize in quick acquisitions of distressed properties." Distressed properties. I caught Georgiana's eye over her husband's head. She looked away quickly, focusing intently on the sugar bowl. "The thing is, Winfield," Urban said, snapping his phone shut with finality, "maybe it's time to think about the future realistically." He moved to his briefcase, which I now noticed had been sitting open beside his chair all along, waiting. The leather was expensive, the kind that screamed success to clients. He withdrew a manila folder, much thicker than my own. "Life changes, responsibilities shift. Some people become assets, others—" He shrugged, letting the sentence hang in the air like smoke. "What Urban means," Georgiana said quietly, her words careful as if walking through a minefield, "is that we want to help however we can." "Help." Urban smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He spread the first document across the coffee table like a dealer laying cards. "That's exactly what this is about, all the help we've provided over the years." The paper was crisp, official-looking. Numbers jumped out at me. $100,000. College tuition. My throat tightened as I recognized the figures, but not their context. You see, when someone's employment situation becomes uncertain, it's natural to examine outstanding financial obligations. Urban's fingers drummed against the leather briefcase. Family obligations? I set my teacup down, with deliberate control. "I don't understand. Those were gifts. Georgiana's education, the house." "Were they?" Urban's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. "Because, according to my records, we have several significant loans that need addressing." Georgiana moved to the window, her back to both of us. Outside, the March evening was settling into darkness, streetlights beginning to flicker on throughout Oak Park. "Time to think about the future realistically, Winfield. Your future." Urban reached into his briefcase again, producing another folder. "Let me show you exactly what you owe us." The documents covered the mahogany surface like evidence in a courtroom. Urban had moved us to the dining room, claiming he needed space to present the situation properly. The dinner Georgiana had been preparing sat forgotten in the kitchen, its savory smell now seeming to mock the appetite none of us possessed. College tuition for Georgiana, 4 years at Northwestern. Urban's finger traced the first invoice. $100,000, paid in installments between 2003 and 2007. I remembered those payments differently. Remembered the pride I felt writing each check, knowing my daughter would graduate without debt. The way she'd called me after each semester, grades high, dreams bright. Then we have the house down payment. Another document slid across the table. $50,000 transferred February 2019. That February. I'd been so happy to help them secure this place in Oak Park, close enough for Sunday dinners, safe enough for future grandchildren. Georgiana had cried when I'd handed her the check, saying I was too generous. Furniture, appliances, wedding expenses. Urban's voice took on the rhythm of an auctioneer. $30,000 in miscellaneous family loans, documented here in detail. My engineering notebook appeared in my hands without conscious thought. I began writing dates, amounts, my handwriting precise despite the tremor I couldn't quite suppress. Do you have my signature on loan documents? The question came out sharper than intended. Urban paused, his theatrical presentation interrupted. Family loans don't always require formal documentation, Winfield. We trusted you. Georgiana appeared beside the table, carrying a fresh pot of tea, though our cups were already full. Her pouring was mechanical, automatic, tea overflowing onto the saucers. Papa always helped us selflessly, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Urban's head snapped toward her. Selflessly? Or with the understanding that generosity comes with responsibilities? I continued writing, my pen moving across the notebook pages. March 15, 2007. Graduation gift furniture for Georgiana's first apartment. I could still see her face when we'd surprised her with the bedroom set, how she'd run her hands over the cherry wood dresser. When did these gifts become loans, Urban? When your income disappeared. His response was immediate, prepared. Financial circumstances change obligations. What seemed generous when you were employed becomes debt when you're not. The notebook filled with questions. Where were the original loan agreements? Who witnessed these transactions? What interest rates applied to family loans? Georgiana set the teapot down with a sharp clink. The house payment wasn't a loan, Urban. Papa said it was. What your father said and what the law recognizes are different things. Urban's voice cut through her protest like scissors through thread. Georgiana, we've discussed this. Had they discussed this? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her for the first time all evening. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes, the nervous energy that kept her moving between kitchen and dining room, the familiar defeated slump of her shoulders. The Crawford property deal I mentioned earlier? Urban leaned back in his chair, confident again. That's the kind of opportunity your debt situation affects. When family members default on obligations, it impacts business relationships. I closed the notebook with deliberate precision. The sound echoed in the dining room like a door shutting. These figures, I said, reviewing my notes, they total exactly $180,000. $180,000 in documented family assistance that needs to be addressed now that your employment status has changed. Urban gathered his papers with the satisfaction of a man who believed he'd won something. The untouched dinner grew cold in the kitchen while we sat in the formal dining room, surrounded by the evidence of Urban's carefully constructed case. My daughter's wedding china gleamed in the cabinet behind her husband's head, each piece a gift I'd given with love, now somehow transformed into debt. I need to verify some things, I said, standing slowly. My joints protested after sitting too long in the uncomfortable dining chair. Of course you do. Urban smiled with the confidence of a man holding all the cards. Take your time. These documents aren't going anywhere. The knocking started at 9:45 a.m., urgent and persistent, cutting through my kitchen's morning quiet. I'd been awake since 5, surrounded by financial papers and coffee cups, my engineering notebooks filled with calculations that wouldn't add up to Urban's version of reality. Through the front door's glass, I saw Wilburn Hudson's familiar silhouette, though I hadn't expected him. At 68, Urban's father maintained the formal bearing of his banking days. Even at this early hour, his tie was perfectly knotted, his gray hair precisely combed, but his hands shook as he waited on my doorstep. Winfield. His voice carried the weight of a sleepless night. We need to talk. I led him to the kitchen, where my financial records covered every available surface. Wilburn's eyes swept across the scattered papers, taking in the scope of my investigation. You've been busy. He settled into the chair across from me, his formal posture at odds with the informal setting. Your son presented me with $180,000 in fabricated debts yesterday evening. I poured him coffee from the pot I'd been nursing since dawn. I spent the night trying to understand how gifts became loans. Wilburn's face aged another decade. He's my flesh and blood, but what he's doing is wrong. The admission hung between us like a confession in church. Wilburn reached into his breast pocket, withdrawing folded photocopies with the care of a man handling evidence. I found these in Urban's home office last night. He keeps meticulous records of his projects. The word projects emerged with distaste. The total fabricated debt is actually $200,000. He's been building this case for months. My hands remained steady as I unfolded the documents, though my heart hammered against my ribs. Each page revealed another layer of Urban's deception. Backdated loan agreements with my forged signature, impossible dates that predated actual transactions, interest calculations on money that had been freely given. This signature, I held up one of the forgeries. He made the W too narrow. I've been signing my name the same way for 40 years. Wilburn nodded miserably. His mother always said he was too clever for his own good. I never thought he'd use that cleverness for this. The kitchen light illuminated flaws in each document. Urban had been thorough, but not thorough enough. Engineering precision had taught me to notice inconsistencies, and his forgeries were riddled with them. There's more. Wilburn's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You're not his first target. He's been systematically identifying vulnerable elderly homeowners, people facing job loss or health crises. I set down the papers with deliberate control. How many others? At least 3 that I know of, maybe more. Shame colored every word. He calls it distressed asset acquisition. Makes it sound legitimate. 2 old men sat in my modest kitchen, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, the morning sun streaming through windows that might not be mine much longer. Wilburn had chosen justice over family loyalty, a decision that couldn't have been easy. Why are you telling me this? Because I raised him better than this. Because my late wife would be horrified. His hands clenched around his coffee cup. Because sometimes doing right means betraying blood. The photocopied documents revealed Urban's timeline. Legal action scheduled for next week. Property seizure authorized through expedited court processes. My home listed as collateral against fabricated debts. He thinks he's set the perfect trap, I said, studying Urban's methodical planning. But he's about to discover what a real trap looks like. Wilburn's eyes met mine across the kitchen table. What do you need from me? Continued access to his records, documentation of his other victims. I closed my notebook with the same precision I'd used the night before, and the contact information for a very good lawyer. Armed with Henrietta Spencer's business card, I'd spent the entire morning organizing every document Wilburn had given me. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt like ascending to a battle station. My manila folder clutched against my chest like armor. Spencer and Associates occupied a corner suite overlooking Lake Michigan, the kind of office that spoke of victories won and justice served. Henrietta Spencer herself was exactly what I'd hoped for. Sharp-eyed, no nonsense, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun that suggested she took no prisoners in the courtroom. Mr. Perkins. Her handshake was firm, professional. Tell me about your situation. I laid out Urban's fabricated documents across her mahogany desk with the precision of spreading blueprints. Henrietta pulled out a magnifying glass, examining each signature with the intensity of a forensic scientist. These forgeries are almost insulting. She looked up at me with the first hint of a smile I'd seen all week. Your son-in-law clearly doesn't respect your intelligence. What are my options? Legally, you have several. She leaned back in her leather chair, steepling her fingers. But first, let's talk about what he can actually do. In Illinois, the burden of proof for family loans rests with the lender. Without proper documentation, real documentation, his case is built on sand. My engineering notebook appeared in my hands again. What constitutes proper documentation? Signed loan agreements with terms clearly stated, witnesses to the transaction, evidence that both parties understood this was a loan, not a gift. She tapped Urban's forged papers with her pen, none of which he has. The relief I felt was almost physical. So he can't take my house? Not with this evidence, but Winfield, may I call you Winfield? I think we can do better than just defending yourself. Her eyes had taken on a predatory gleam. Your son-in-law has committed several serious crimes here. Document forgery, fraud. If we can prove a pattern of this behavior, Wilburn mentioned other victims. Then, we're not just talking about defense. We're talking about going on the offensive. She pulled a thick legal pad from her desk drawer. I'll need every bank record you can find, every receipt, every witness who can testify about your generous gifts to your daughter's family. The Lake Michigan skyline stretched beyond her windows, gray and cold under the March sky. But inside this office, I felt warmth for the first time since walking into that plant with my termination letter. My retainer is $5,000. Can you manage that? I nodded. My severance package would cover it, barely. What happens next? Next, you become a detective. We need to build a case so airtight that your son-in-law will wish he'd never heard of forged documents. She handed me a detailed checklist, typed with military precision. Bank records going back 10 years, witness statements, any physical evidence of your gifts. Standing to leave, folder tucked under my arm, I felt transformed. 24 hours ago, I'd been a victim. Now I was a client with a plan. Henrietta, one more question. How long do we have? If Urban's as arrogant as these documents suggest, he'll move fast. He thinks he has you cornered. She walked me to her office door. Men like that always underestimate their opponents. It's their greatest weakness. The elevator doors closed behind me, and I realized I was smiling for the first time in days. Urban thought he'd trapped a foolish old man. We'll need every bank record, every receipt, every witness. Are you prepared for that level of detail? Monday morning found me at First National Bank of Oak Park, where I'd maintained accounts for 15 years. The building's marble lobby echoed with the soft conversations of customers and the clicking of keyboard keys as tellers processed transactions. "Mr. Perkins!" Janet Morrison, the branch manager, greeted me with genuine warmth. "How can we help you today?" "I need detailed transaction records, going back 10 years. I handed her Henrietta's official letter of representation. Every check, every transfer, everything related to payments to my daughter's family. Janet's professional demeanor shifted to curiosity, but she asked no questions. Within 2 hours, I walked out with boxes of meticulously organized statements, canceled checks, and transfer records. Each document told the story of a father's love, not a businessman's loan. Tuesday took me to Chicago Federal Credit Union, where smaller but equally important transactions lived. The young teller who helped me seemed impressed by the thoroughness of my request. 10 years is a lot of history, sir. Most people only need a year or two. This isn't most situations. Wednesday meant witness interviews. Mrs. Henderson from next door remembered the furniture delivery truck at Georgiana's house. "Such beautiful pieces," she said, over coffee in her sun-filled kitchen. "You were so proud," showing me the pictures she sent. "Graduation gift for my baby girl," you kept saying. Bob Cranston from the plant recalled our conversation about helping with the house down payment. "You were excited about it, Winfield. Said it felt good to finally be able to help your daughter get established." Each conversation added weight to my growing case. People remembered not just the money, but my joy in giving it. Thursday brought me to Furniture Warehouse on North Avenue, where remarkably they still had records of the bedroom set purchase. The current manager, Patricia Valdez, pulled up the old transaction on her computer. Cash payment, no financing. Your signature on the delivery order shows the Oak Park address. She printed copies of everything. The delivery notes say, "Graduation gift from father," right here in our system. By Friday evening, my dining room table had disappeared under an organized mountain of evidence. Bank statements arranged chronologically, witness statements typed and signed, photographs of every relevant document stored on my phone and printed in triplicate. The pattern was unmistakable. Every transaction showed the hallmarks of gifts freely given: immediate full payment, no payment schedules, delivery directly to Georgiana's address, and, most importantly, my genuine happiness in giving them. I called Henrietta that evening. "I think I have everything you requested." "How much everything?" 3 boxes of bank records, 8 witness statements, and a detailed timeline spanning from 2015 to present. Her laugh was rich with satisfaction. "Winfield, I think we have more than enough to defend you, but looking at what you've collected, I'm wondering if we should go further." "What do you mean?" "I mean, your son-in-law made one critical mistake. He assumed you were just another elderly victim who wouldn't fight back. The predatory edge returned to her voice. He's about to learn what happens when you target a retired engineer. Saturday morning, I sat in my kitchen with coffee and the satisfaction of completed work. The evidence wasn't just comprehensive, it was overwhelming. Urban's fabricated case would crumble under this documentary avalanche. Henrietta was right. I had enough evidence to defend myself. But looking at this mountain of proof, I realized we might have enough to go on the offensive. The same office that had witnessed my desperation 2 weeks earlier now felt like a war room. I arrived at Henrietta's office with 3 carefully labeled boxes, each containing organized sections of evidence that would have made my old engineering supervisors proud. Henrietta's eyes widened as I unpacked the documentation. "This is extraordinary work, Winfield. Most clients bring me a shoebox full of random papers. You've built a legal fortress." She examined my chronological timeline, cross-referenced witness statements, and photographic evidence with growing excitement. "Look at this pattern. Your son-in-law has been planning this for months, maybe years." "What do you mean?" "He's been systematically reframing every gift as a loan in his own records. See here?" She pointed to Urban's fabricated documents. "He backdated these to coincide with real transactions, but made them loans instead of gifts. This isn't opportunistic fraud, it's premeditated financial abuse." The magnitude of Urban's deception crystallized before us. This wasn't just about my house. It was about a calculated pattern of exploitation. "There's something else." Henrietta pulled out a thick folder from her filing cabinet. "I did some research on Hudson Properties. Your son-in-law has been remarkably active in acquiring properties from elderly sellers, often at below-market prices." She spread out property records across her desk. 6 properties in the last 2 years, all purchased from sellers over 65. All transactions completed within weeks of the sellers experiencing financial stress. How many other families has he done this to? That's what we're going to find out. Henrietta reached for her phone. "I'm calling the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. Real estate fraud is a serious crime, and if there's a pattern..." The next several days blurred together in a whirlwind of official meetings and form filing. The IDFPR investigator, Marcus Chen, was particularly interested in Urban's business practices. "We've been tracking suspicious activity in the suburban real estate market," he explained during our meeting at the State Building downtown. "Quick acquisitions from distressed sellers, often involving family pressure situations." At the IRS regional office, Agent Sarah Martinez reviewed Urban's tax filings with particular attention to declared income versus property acquisitions. If he's underreporting income from these transactions, that's a federal issue. Each agency visit added another pressure point to our developing strategy. Urban's arrogance had made him careless, creating a paper trail that professional investigators could follow with devastating precision. "The beauty of this approach," Henrietta explained as we reviewed our multi-front attack plan, "is that everything happens simultaneously. He can't plug all the holes at once. By early April, our trap was perfectly constructed, tax investigation initiated, real estate licensing inquiry filed, civil lawsuit prepared for filing. Every piece designed to trigger at once, overwhelming Urban's ability to respond effectively." "He thought he'd identified a perfect victim," I said, reviewing our completed strategy. "That's exactly right. Elderly, recently unemployed, emotionally vulnerable." Henrietta's smile was sharp as a blade. He never considered that his victim might be a retired engineer with 40 years of problem-solving experience. The final piece fell into place when Georgiana called that afternoon, her voice nervous but hopeful. "Papa, Urban suggested we have a family dinner this Sunday. He wants to discuss the situation." I looked at Henrietta, who nodded with grim satisfaction. Urban thought he'd set the perfect trap for a foolish old man. He was about to discover what a real trap looked like. 2 weeks had passed since Henrietta and I filed our complaints with regulatory agencies. The waiting period felt deliberate, strategic. I wanted Urban completely confident in his scheme before I revealed mine. Wednesday morning found me in my kitchen, reviewing Henrietta's final notes one last time. Everything was in position. Tax investigation initiated. Real estate licensing inquiry filed. Civil countersuit prepared. Now came the most difficult part, the performance. I dialed Georgiana's number, my fingers steady despite what this call represented. "Papa!" Her voice carried genuine delight. This is such a lovely surprise. I was wondering if you'd be free for dinner this Saturday. I could bring that apple pie you used to love. The one with the brown sugar crumble? Oh, Papa, that sounds wonderful. Urban will be so pleased to see you. Would he? I doubted that, but I kept my voice warm. 6 o'clock work for you? Perfect. The children will be thrilled to see their grandpa. After hanging up, I sat quietly in my kitchen, surrounded by the familiar sounds of suburban morning, birds outside my window, the hum of the refrigerator, normal life continuing while I prepared for war. The grocery store felt different as I selected ingredients with ceremonial precision. Granny Smith apples, firm and tart. Ceylon cinnamon, not the cheap cassia variety. Brown sugar that clumped together in rich dark crystals. Each ingredient chosen with the same care I'd once applied to engineering specifications. Back home, I pulled out the worn recipe card, its edges soft from decades of handling. Georgiana's childish handwriting decorated the margins. More cinnamon, Papa, written in purple crayon when she was 8 years old. The familiar ritual began, peeling apples in long, unbroken spirals the way my own mother had taught me. The sharp scent of cinnamon mixing with butter. Flour worked into golden pastry dough under my experienced hands. Memory flooded back with each familiar motion. 6-year-old Georgiana standing on a kitchen chair beside me, flour dusting her nose as she attempted to roll pie crust. "Make it perfect, Papa," she demanded with the seriousness only children could muster. "Perfection takes practice, sweetheart," I'd told her then. "But love makes up for a lot of mistakes." The irony wasn't lost on me now. I'd spent decades loving imperfectly, giving freely, never demanding documentation or repayment. Urban had mistaken generosity for weakness, love for stupidity. The timer chimed, pulling me back to present reality. Golden brown perfection filled my kitchen with the scent of childhood memories and family traditions. This pie represented everything Urban sought to destroy. The bonds between father and daughter. The simple joy of giving without expecting return. I cooled the pie on wire racks, then carefully placed it in a white bakery box, the kind I'd used for her birthday cakes when she was small. My hands moved with automatic precision, but my mind was already 3 days ahead, imagining Urban's confident smirk when he presented his fabricated documents. Saturday evening would mark the end of one story and the beginning of another. The last time I'd sit at my daughter's table as simply her father, before becoming something else entirely. Her protector, her avenger, the man who'd chosen justice over family peace. The pie box sat on my counter, innocent and perfect, while I prepared for the most important performance of my life. The 3-day wait had felt eternal. Now, walking up Georgiana's front path with her favorite pie, I was ready. My knock brought immediate response. The door opened to reveal my daughter's genuine delight, her face lighting up the way it had when she was 10, and I'd surprised her with carnival tickets. "You actually made it." She hugged me carefully, mindful of the white bakery box in my hands. "The children have been asking about Grandpa's pie all afternoon. Where should I put this? Kitchen counter is perfect. Urban's just finishing up some calls. You know how busy Saturday evenings can be in real estate." The house buzzed with comfortable family chaos. Children's voices drifted from upstairs. Something savory simmered on the stove. For a moment, I allowed myself to remember when visits here felt purely joyful, uncomplicated by strategy and survival. Wilburn appeared from the living room, his formal bearing intact despite weekend casual clothes. His eyes met mine with barely concealed anxiety. "Winfield." His handshake trembled slightly. "Good to see you." "Grandpa, can we have pie now?" 8-year-old Marcus bounced into the kitchen, followed by his 6-year-old sister Emma. "After dinner, sweetheart." Giorgino ruffled his hair. "Why don't you both go play upstairs while the adults talk?" Wilburn waited until their footsteps faded, then approached with the urgency of a man carrying too much guilt. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "Urban's been preparing all week. He's got documents, contracts, legal papers. You've walked into his trap." I looked at this decent man who'd chosen justice over family loyalty, who'd risked everything to warn me about his own son's crimes. "Actually, Wilburn," I said quietly, "he's walked into mine." His eyes widened. The front door opened before he could respond. Urban's voice carried through the hallway with professional authority. "Georgiana, I've got the documents ready for our discussion with your father." He appeared in the kitchen doorway, expensive briefcase in hand, wearing his weekend version of business attire. His smile held all the warmth of a lone shark collecting debts. "Winfield, so good of you to join us." His handshake was firm, calculated. "I hope you brought your appetite for serious conversation." "I brought pie." "Of course you did." His tone suggested this was exactly the kind of impractical gesture he'd expected from a foolish old man. "Well, after we handle our business, perhaps we can celebrate." Georgiana moved between us with nervous energy, her hostess instincts fighting against growing awareness that something significant was happening. "Should we eat first?" she suggested hopefully. "Business before pleasure," Urban said, his voice carrying no room for argument. "Your father and I have important matters to discuss." The children thundered downstairs again, sensing the adults' tension despite their youth. "Mommy, when can we have pie?" Emma tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Soon, baby. Go watch television in the family room for a little while." Urban's impatience was becoming visible. He set his briefcase on the kitchen counter with deliberate authority. "Perhaps we should move to the dining room," he suggested, more appropriate for document review. I watched him orchestrate the evening with the confidence of a man who believed he held all the advantages: his briefcase, his house rules, his assumption that family authority would override basic justice. "Lead the way, Urban." I kept my voice mild, accommodating. "I think it's time we settled our accounts." The dining room felt different now, less like a family gathering space and more like a courtroom where Urban planned to play judge and jury. He positioned himself at the head of the mahogany table with theatrical precision, briefcase open beside him like a general's battle plans. The overhead chandelier cast dramatic shadows as he spread documents across the polished surface. "I've taken the liberty of organizing all outstanding family obligations," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of a business presentation. "College tuition payments, house down payment assistance, furniture and appliances, various cash advances over the years." Each document landed on the table with calculated effect, professional formatting, official-looking letterheads, numbers that would intimidate any reasonable person into immediate compliance. The total comes to exactly $200,000. Urban's pen traced figures with the precision of an accountant billing for services. Plus, accumulated interest at market rates, of course. Georgiana leaned forward to read the papers, her face growing pale as she recognized familiar transactions reframed as debts. "Urban, these weren't loans. Papa gave us this money as gifts." "Gifts?" Urban's eyebrows rose in manufactured surprise. "Georgiana, we've discussed this. When family members provide substantial financial assistance, there are legal implications regardless of the emotional context." Wilburn shifted uncomfortably in his chair, covering his face with weathered hands. The shame radiating from him was almost physical, a father's horror at watching his son's criminal behavior unfold. "The Northwestern tuition alone represents a significant obligation," Urban continued, apparently oblivious to his wife's distress and his father's mortification. 4 years of private education doesn't qualify as a casual gift. I watched him present his fabricated case with the confidence of a man who'd never been challenged. Each document was a masterpiece of creative accounting, transforming generous gifts into legal obligations through the magic of forged signatures and backdated agreements. "I remember writing those tuition checks," I said quietly. "I was proud to help my daughter get an education without student debt." "Pride doesn't alter legal realities, Winfield." Urban slid another document across the table. "This is a standard deed transfer form. Once you sign over the house, we can consider the debt satisfied." Georgiana's hand flew to her throat. "The house? Urban, you want to take Papa's house?" "It's not about wanting anything. It's about resolving legitimate financial obligations." His tone suggested she was being unreasonably emotional about simple business procedures. Wilburn made a sound somewhere between a groan and a whimper. "Urban, please, this isn't right." "What's not right is allowing family debts to remain unresolved while Winfield faces unemployment." Urban's voice carried the patience of someone explaining obvious facts to slow children. "This arrangement protects everyone's interests." The house deed sat before me, pristine and official, waiting for the signature that would complete Urban's perfect crime: my home, my security, my life's work reduced to settlement of fabricated debts. I reached into my jacket pocket as though retrieving a pen. Urban's smile grew wider, victory already tasted. You want my signature, Urban? I kept my voice steady, accommodating. Let me show you some documents that might interest you first. Instead of reaching for a pen, I pulled out a manila folder that would change everything. Urban's confident smile faltered as official government letterheads emerged from my folder. The Internal Revenue Service seal gleamed under the chandelier light, followed by documents from the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. What is this? Urban's voice carried the first hint of uncertainty I'd heard all evening. Tax investigation preliminary findings. I spread the documents with the same methodical precision he'd used for his forgeries. Seems there's a significant discrepancy between your reported income and actual real estate commissions. The color drained from Urban's face as he recognized the numbers. $500,000 in unreported annual income. Bank statements showing deposits that never appeared on tax returns. A paper trail that led directly to federal tax evasion charges. This is impossible. How did you... Urban's expensive pen dropped forgotten onto the mahogany table. Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation complaint, filed March 28th. Another document joined the collection. Fraudulent business practices, unethical client representation, document forgery. Georgiana leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Document forgery? I pulled out photocopied pages that Wilburn had provided weeks earlier, Urban's handwritten notes about debt collection strategy from his own office files, his practice signatures showing him rehearsing my forged autograph. Your husband has been planning this for months, sweetheart. Every gift I gave you has been systematically reframed as a loan in his private records. Urban's hands shook as he recognized his own handwriting. Dad, you went through my files? Wilburn finally lifted his head from his hands. I couldn't watch you destroy a good man's life with lies. Real Estate Licensing Board investigation, I continued, placing another official document on the table. Professional ethics violations, client fund misappropriation. When they finish their investigation, your license will be permanently revoked. The dining room fell silent except for the ticking of Georgiana's grandmother clock. Urban stared at the evidence scattered across his own table, his fabricated debt documents now insignificant against the weight of government investigations. You can't prove any of this, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Bank statements showing hidden accounts, witness testimony from clients you've defrauded, photographic evidence of your planning documents. I gestured to the growing pile of proof. I've been building this case for over a month, Urban. While you thought you were hunting a helpless old man, I was documenting every crime you've committed. Georgiana's tears started silently, recognition dawning that her marriage had been built on systematic deception. How many other families, Urban? How many other people like Papa? Urban's response was barely audible. It's just business. Fraud is business? Wilburn's voice carried decades of disappointment. Stealing from elderly homeowners is business? The house deed transfer document still lay where Urban had placed it, now seeming pathetic and powerless next to federal investigation notices and professional licensing complaints. You want to know how I got these documents, Urban? I reached for my smartphone with deliberate calm. Let me play you some interesting conversations. The tax documents were just the appetizer. The real feast of evidence was about to begin. My smartphone speaker crackled to life with Janet Morrison's familiar voice. Mr. Perkins was always so proud when he helped Georgiana. Those college payments were definitely gifts, not loans. He'd say, "My daughter's education is the best investment I'll ever make." Urban lunged forward. You recorded private conversations without consent. Actually, these are business conversations in public spaces, perfectly legal in Illinois. I scrolled to the next recording. Mrs. Henderson from next door remembers the furniture delivery quite clearly. Her elderly voice filled the dining room. Oh yes, Winfield was so excited about that bedroom set. Kept saying it was a graduation gift for his baby girl. No mention of loans or repayment. Georgiana covered her mouth, recognizing the neighbors' voices, confirming what she'd always known. These were gifts given with love, not debts to be collected. Bob Cranston from the plant, I continued, playing another recording. He recalls our conversation about the house down payment. Bob's rough voice emerged from the speaker. Winfield was happier than I'd seen him in years. said it felt good to help his daughter get established. Never mentioned expecting the money back. Urban's face grew red with rage. You orchestrated this entire conspiracy. I documented the truth. From my folder, I extracted photographs that made Urban's blood freeze. Images of documents from his own office, his handwritten plans, his signature practice sheets, his client target lists. Dad took these pictures? Urban's voice cracked with betrayal. Wilburn nodded slowly. I couldn't let you destroy innocent people anymore. The photographs revealed Urban's methodical approach to elderly fraud, lists of potential targets, notes about identifying vulnerable homeowners facing financial stress, a systematic predator's planning documents. Illinois Real Estate License Board, case number REL 2025-047. I placed the official letter on top of the growing evidence pile. Professional ethics investigation, document fraud, client fund misappropriation. Your career is over, Urban. Georgiana stood abruptly, her chair scraping against hardwood floor. How long have you been lying to me? How long has our entire marriage been built on stealing from old people? I never stole anything. I provided legitimate business services. By forging signatures, by fabricating loan agreements. Her voice rose with each word. By trying to steal my father's house through criminal fraud? Urban turned desperately to his father. Dad, you're destroying your own family. Wilburn's response was firm, final. You destroyed this family when you chose crime over character. I pulled out the final document, a letter from the Cook County District Attorney's Office. Criminal fraud investigation, case pending. The prosecutors are already building their case based on the evidence I've provided. The dining room chandelier cast harsh shadows across Urban's defeated face. His perfect scheme had become perfect evidence of his own criminality. Legal fight? I asked, echoing his earlier confidence. Urban, you don't understand. The prosecutors are already building their case. The weeks following the Saturday evening moved like dominoes falling, each consequence triggering the next. May brought a different Chicago spring. Urban's real estate office displayed a license suspended notice in its front window. The Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation had acted swiftly once presented with documented evidence of systematic fraud. Cook County Superior Court, May 15th. Urban stood before Judge Martinez in a suit that no longer projected confidence. His lawyer had negotiated a plea agreement to avoid federal prison, full restitution, public apology, permanent license revocation, and 5 years probation. Mr. Hudson, Judge Martinez's voice carried the weight of justice. Your systematic targeting of elderly homeowners represents a particularly reprehensible abuse of professional trust. Urban's court-ordered apology took place at his former office, witnessed by clients he'd defrauded and reporters who'd caught wind of the story. $27,000 in damages paid to me. $43,000 to other victims. His reputation destroyed as completely as he'd hoped to destroy mine. 3 days later, I sat in my kitchen with Georgiana, sharing coffee and the comfortable silence of reconciliation. Papa, I should have known. Tears threatened her composed facade. I should have stood up to him that first night. You were caught between loyalty to your husband and love for your father. That's an impossible position. I refilled her cup, steam rising between us like incense of forgiveness. What matters is that you chose truth when it counted. She'd filed for divorce the day after Urban's sentencing, reclaiming her maiden name and planning a new life free from toxic manipulation. The children stayed with me some afternoons while she attended paralegal classes downtown. Morrison Construction Consulting had offered me a position that felt like resurrection. Your strategic thinking during this legal situation impressed our partners, senior partner David Chen had explained. We need someone with engineering precision and problem-solving expertise. At 65, I was employed again, valued again, contributing again. The work was challenging, reviewing construction projects, identifying structural problems, preventing expensive mistakes. My experience had become an asset rather than a liability. Sunday dinners at my house became tradition. Georgiana arrived with the children. Wilburn brought flowers from his garden. We gathered around my dining room table, the same table where I'd once spread evidence of Urban's crimes, now hosting conversations about school projects and weekend plans. Grandpa Wilburn, tell the story about the pie again. Emma requested, chocolate smudging her cheek. Well, Wilburn's eyes twinkled. Your grandfather Winfield made the most perfect apple pie, and when he brought it to dinner that night, none of us knew it would help catch the bad guy. The children giggled, not fully understanding the adult complexities, but sensing the story's happy ending. Justice served, family restored, truth triumphant over deception. Georgiana caught my eye across the table, her smile radiant with freedom and possibility. Thank you, Papa, for everything. Outside, spring evening settled over our neighborhood. Inside, my house filled with laughter and conversation, the sounds of a family rebuilt on foundations of honesty and love. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.